We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this rebel outpost, if you want to support the home of college football sickles with a donation to help us keep the lights on, just hit that $sign where you make a comment and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend. With your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. Matt Rhule, what are you doing? Why? The question is, why? What are you doing? It's okay for not even 95%, 95 of the Nebraska, 95% of the Nebraska Cornhusker fans, they're over it. They're over it. They're in the Big Ten. They've been in the Big Ten for a long time. Why are you singling out the Big 12? Why are you taking shots at the Big 12? Look. I get it. When you are recruiting, Of course you're going to say we are Nebraska. Of course you're going to say we got 90,000 crazy fans. Of course you're going to say we are the Big Ten. Of course, nobody can, everybody does that in the Big Ten. Everybody does that in the SEC. And if it comes to the time that Nebraska is battling for an at-large bid to go to the playoffs, yeah, it would make some sense for the head coach to say, look what we did here in the Big Ten. Look at our schedule. We are the Big Ten. We're not the Big 12. We're not the ACC. We're the Big Ten. I think everybody can understand that. But a press conference in April, you single out the Big 12 not once, but a couple of times, because maybe you lost a recruiting battle. You're going to play Cincinnati the first week. Week 1. We are going to go over that report. We're going to start the monologue with that. Well, maybe not quite start the monologue. I have something else I want to talk about first, but again, most of the Nebraska Cornhusker fans, they're not obsessed over the Big 12 anymore. Now, there's a couple knuckleheads out there that are, their whole lives, their whole social media lives is about the injustices that Nebraska was given in the Big 12. But 95, 98, 99% of the Cornhusker fans out there don't give a rat's behind. They love the Cornhuskers, an incredible fan base. But Matt Rhule, you sound like, what are you doing? To what benefit? When you in a press conference in April, you got to say, look, it's got to be to the benefit of your program, to the benefit of your team, to the benefit of your players, not this whatever you were doing. We're going to go through that. We are going to go through that. I've got Nebraska once again. I predicted them 8-4 last year. They went 6-6. This year I got them doing pretty good again. I love Dylan Raiola, but Matt Rhule is making me nervous. He's not immature like Scott Frost, but he's still too loosey-goosey. We are going to hit that. And then we're going to go over the reports of ESPN and The Athletic. Just a small portion of those articles talking about the meeting that is going to happen in Texas and the college football playoffs. And the title of this live show is, Can Big Ten and SEC Team Up Be Stopped? Can it be stopped? Can the other conferences throw up enough concern, throw up enough roadblocks, throw in a little bit of a political threats in the state, in the Senate or the House, whatever, to make the Big Ten and the SEC rethink, especially the Big Ten, make the Big Ten rethink their 4 automatic qualifiers positions. So we are going to go through that. But let me go through a roll call. I do appreciate all you joining us on a Monday afternoon, April 21st. Thank you guys so very much. The Walking Geek, Kay Struthers, CFB Plus, Anthony Carlson, Coy is in the house. Mr. Monkey says, Jonathan Price, Caleb Ramirez, Kenner Bowman, Movie Time Blues is in the house. The Doctor is in the house. Daniel Gorby, Mick Stevens, MBM, Deadeye, Jan Uzi is in the house. Nittany Lion fan in Clemson territory. Thank you for coming on in, John Uzi. I'm sure I said your name incorrect. I apologize. Let me know later on in the chat room how to say your handle. Paul Bond is in the house. D5 Terps is here. Nick Kelso. John Graysmith is in the house. Baylor Bear. Go Black 45. Joyful One is in the house. Elliot Howard. No way can it be stopped. No way can it be stopped. Dante's Infernal. Purgatory. Chad Bracey is in the house. Let me clear something up real quick. We're getting a little buffering here. We're getting a little buffering to begin the show. Can the Big Ten and the SEC team up be stopped? Can it be slowed down a little bit? We are going to get to those articles in a second. I do want to go back in time. I want to go back to yesterday. In fact, I kind of want to go back in the last 2.5 years of the show. Want to take a step back and make sure everybody understands what my opinion is on something. Okay? I want to take a step back and make sure everybody understands. Old Dad is in the house. Mr. Seminole, Old Dad is here. Okay, so give me a moment here. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so I just want to hit upon this before we get to the monologue of our live show today. I put out a tweet. It was today. It was early in the morning. 6:36 Central Time. I said these two phrases, in my opinion, should never be uttered when speaking about possible future conference realignment. If blank conference wanted blank school, they would already be a member. Or if blank school wanted to become a member of blank conference, it would already have been done. Okay? I put that up this morning. I talked about that yesterday. And I reported it live. Somebody DM'd me a handle that I've never seen before. The person's got 32 followers, but basically said if Notre Dame was ever going to be in the conference, they would have already been a member. And of course, that's, I have been saying it for 2.5 years. 2.5 years, that is the statement. When somebody says that, they are limiting themselves on what possibly could happen in conference realignment. Now, I could go back in the spring and summer of 2022 and tell you and go through all the comments on my X account. How many times people said that to me when I was talking about the next Big Ten expansion? Especially during the Washington-Oregon situation. If Washington and Oregon were ever going to get to the Big Ten, it would have already been done. Now people are using that in Notre Dame. If Notre Dame was ever going to be in the Big Ten, it would have already happened. Let me make this perfectly clear. There is good reason, good people, smart people. We had the Lewis, the Blue Devil, who had a great phone call, gave us the reasons why he doesn't think Notre Dame is going to be joining the Big Ten in this next era of disruption that we're probably going to have. I have got no problem with any of those logic. People say I don't think Notre Dame is going to go to the Big Ten. I've got no problem with disagreement. In fact, that is the majority position. Not just in PATC, but in message boards everywhere. So if you say, Greg, I don't think it's all cool, man. I've got no problem. We've had plenty of people say, Greg, I disagree with you. I haven't had a problem with one person and will not. But I go back to just saying it's not going to happen, because if it would have already happened. That's not real life. Especially in conference realignment. I happen to believe, peek around the corner, and if we're wrong, we're going to take the L. In fact, I already had to take an L today. We'll get to that in a moment. I already had to take an L today on something. But if the ACC implodes, which I think it will, there's going to be some schools leaving the conference. They're going to be the most valuable schools leaving the conference. I believe Notre Dame and the Big Ten are going to have, again, a very serious conversation, and Notre Dame, I believe, is going to end up in the Big Ten. I've given you all my reasons why. We're going to talk about it again and again and again over the next 18 months. But no matter where you stand on that issue, the ACC imploding, or if you think they're going to lose Clemson and Florida State, and I think they will. They went to the courts. They got a massive victory. I think they're going to go to the Big Ten. I think they're going to go to the SEC, or they're going to create their own situation. But that is going to have a very strong effect on the Irish. That hasn't happened in the years past. Not in the last 20 years. Not in the last 10 years. In 2010, Notre Dame and the Big Ten had very serious conversations. There has been multiple times over the recent history that Notre Dame and the Big Ten has had very serious conversations about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. Notre Dame has said no every single time. But it hasn't been where Notre Dame has had no interest in talking to the Big Ten. That is not reality. Notre Dame has been able to find enough value in their current situation to keep what they want, and that is football independence. But if they get to the point where they're not able to gain enough exposure or revenue resources to compete at the highest level in football and the other Olympic sports, that is the time where I think they're going to join the Big Ten. Other people disagree. But I don't think anybody should just say that the ACC, if they lose Florida State and Clemson, if they lose North Carolina, that somehow the Irish are not going to be affected. It's going to be like, well, we'll just figure it out. There is going... Before Stanford joined the ACC, you remember that You remember that Stanford, a guy, account on Instagram saying that he believed something, and I'm paraphrasing it, something like Stanford and Notre Dame eventually going to get in the Big Ten, if not now, later. What he says, something to that effect. We said it at the very moment. We said we have no information on that. However, we know people that believes they know that account, that Stanford account, is legit. And then as a few days went by, we knew here at Peek Around the Corner that there were chatter behind the curtain that took all that very seriously. In other words, Notre Dame's goal is to compete at the highest level in football and all these other sports. And they want to do it the way they're doing it now. They want to keep their football independence. But if you ask any of these reporters, any of these boosters, any of these people, the question is, Notre Dame willing to take a couple steps back in funding and resources and exposure, not to join the SEC, not to join the Big Ten? If the ACC implodes, nobody believes Notre Dame is going to take a step back. In fact, Swarbrick and now Bavakwa has said those exact words. So it is PATC's strongly held opinion, based on people that we've talked to, that when the ACC loses their top brands, no question Notre Dame is going to have very serious talks with the Big Ten. Notre Dame ain't going to go to the Big Ten and say, we have absolutely no interest. They have never even said that before. They're definitely not going to say it then. And then, if Notre Dame can find a way, maybe somehow, I still haven't received a good answer on that. But if they're able to maintain their exposure, if they're able to fulfill their obligations to the NBC media deal, okay, maybe Notre Dame can figure it out. I have not been able to figure it out. Nobody on X, nobody on this show, nobody that I've talked to, nobody has been able to lay out the plan that Notre Dame can keep the exposure and the revenue coming on in if they lose a Florida State, a Clemson, a North Carolina, possibly Miami. Notre Dame might not join the Big Ten during this next disruption. And if that is the case, I'm going to take the big L here. But I can promise you something. Hold on, I got a call. Hold on. But I can promise you something. If Notre Dame does not join the Big Ten during this next disruption of conference realignment, I'm going to come on here in front of this camera, take the L, and eat a cheeseburger. I promise you that. I'm also going to promise you something else. If I take the L on this, or if I take the W on this, whatever, it's not the result of one person telling me this. It's not the result of me being a mouthpiece of the Big Ten. It's not the result of me having a handler and I'm its puppet. Right or wrong, I've been doing this for over a decade. We have broken stories here that most of you don't even know about. There is not a handler here for Peek Around the Corner. You can agree, disagree, but I have always, even with Western Civic, I have always respected the callers and people in the chat room, unless they say something, unless they use language that I got to make them disappear. I have respected different opinions on all different subjects. That's what makes this show go. You are the ones that make this show go. There have been people who are longtime callers I enjoyed their phone calls. They had long phone calls on here, and all I've done is shown respect. Let me know who I've disrespected. That's all I want to say. Right or wrong on Notre Dame, right or wrong on anything I've said here, it is not done because there's one person telling me this and I'm the puppet. That is incredibly insulting. And if you believe that, if you believe that's all I do, then you do not know me at all. The little general, the wife, the moderator who rules with an iron fist, watches me, listens to me, sees, she doesn't know who, I don't, I want to be careful. She sees the time that I spend on this program. Family and friends, people in the chat room, Jeff Olson, Terry Nord, Daniel Leonard, they come on in one. They've all seen me work. I don't have a handler. I'm not a mouthpiece. I have successfully been able to get everybody mad at me at one point or another because I have broken something. The Big Ten, you think I'm the mouthpiece of the Big Ten? You crazy? I'm persona non grata in the Big Ten. You think I'm the mouthpiece of the SEC? Of the Minnesota Golden Gophers? I say I'm the mayor of Loserville City and I've just been reelected? No. This show is authentic as possibly can be. As transparent as possibly can be. If we get the Notre Dame story wrong, there's nobody who's going to get here quicker to take the L in front of the camera than myself. In fact, I have taken an L already today. Let me get to that. Remember, every time I take an L, that's the first thing I talk about. Look, it has become quite obvious that the total deregulation of how conferences decide their conference champions is here. I know Ross Gellinger just put out, there's 150 rules that the NCAA has discarded based upon the settlement, based upon all this stuff, NCAA House settlement, and all this other stuff. I thought it was going to happen a lot sooner. This is what I wrote On July 16th, 2019, total deregulation of how conferences decide their conference champions is coming sooner rather than later. Well, in 2022, I believe it was 2022, we got the divisional provisional where you don't have to have two divisions if you're like have over 10 teams in your conference. And the rule, there was deregulation involved in all that already. But now we're at the point where conferences are going to have all this type of power. Not just determining their conference champions, but a whole lot of other things. And maybe all that gets codified, or maybe it doesn't. We'll see what happens. But I'm taking the L. That was today because it was later, not sooner. I thought all this was going to happen sooner. But anyway, so I took the L there. I would take the L on Notre Dame if they don't join the Big Ten during this next disruption. Let me get to the Super Chats, and then we're going to get to our monologue. Opie, I'm still waiting on you to have a strong opinion about cheeseburgers. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready. Where is my... hold on, Opie. Hold on. There we go. Opie, I think that's probably the one thing I've been so clear on that everybody understands. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Mr. Seminole, for your incredible generosity. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Unbelievable. Opie has been an incredible supporter of this channel for a very long time. Opie, thank you. And I love his sense of humor and his creativity, being creative in his postings. Ryan, Willie the Evil, Badger, Greg, do you think with all the QB movement in the portal that'll affect their development enough that QB play will suffer in the NFL? That's a great question. Wow. Unfortunately, I'm not qualified. I'm not an X's and O's. I'm not a football coach. I can give you my opinion, and my answer is maybe. Maybe for some guys bouncing around, all different coordinators. Or maybe in some cases will help them a little bit because they're learning different offenses, and they got to learn them so quickly. Overall, though, I think you're on something here. I think you're on to something, Evil Badger. Not on something. I think you're on to something. There's a lot of quarterback movement. In fact, Joey Aguilar, the quarterback, he was going to be QB1 of UCLA. Now he's taking a visit to Tennessee. While Nico, I'm leaving on a jet plane, goes to UCLA. Now, there is a couple other schools that Aguilar is going to, not just to Tennessee. I read a report he's going to visit a couple other places. You've got Steven Angeli going and visiting Syracuse. Fran Brown, that is an interesting, very interesting visit. That would be pretty interesting to see if that happens. Ryan Willie, that is a great question. People in the chat room, give your opinion on Ryan Willie's question on that. Do you think all this, is that hurting the development of the quarterback? Or is it helping? Or let me know. Let us know. Ryan, great question. Brilliant question. Thank you so much. Espetox. I wonder if ACC fans were saying in 2005, if Maryland was ever going to be in the Big Ten, it would have already happened. If Nebraska, if Oregon, etc. Yeah. Again, thank you for the super chat, Espetox. Again, I get it. There was great logic to Maryland never going to the Big Ten. I mean, great logic. You know, if it would have happened, it would have happened a long time before. Rutgers is the bigger one because it was known that Rutgers in Big Ten has had many, many, many talks since the early 1990s. Rutgers and the Big Ten were talking forever. And then Rutgers, they finally had just enough room because North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, and they did not have the interest in breaking up the ACC and joining the Big Ten at the time. So absolutely. North Carolina. The Big Ten's trying to get North Carolina again. And we think they're probably going to strike out again. But the Big Ten, I don't think they're going to give up until the SEC officially, successfully grabs North Carolina. Or the Big Ten might get North Carolina. But the Big Ten has been going after North Carolina for decades. Or at least, decades, plural. At least 2. Now, again, I have reasons to believe they're going to go to the SEC. You might have your own reasons, different reasons, that North Carolina might go to the SEC. You might have different reasons that North Carolina might stay in the ACC. But just to say North Carolina, if they were ever going to go to the Big Ten, it would have already happened by now. Just that statement has always got me going. And I've talked about this for 2.5 years. So no, it's not a pushback on anybody. There was a person who sent it to me on a DM yesterday during the live show, and I said, I didn't say the name. I'm not going to say the name. And we talked about it. Anyways, thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate it so very much. Okay, let's get to it. First of all, we're going to talk about Matt Rhule. Before we get in to what is happening in Texas, can the Big Ten and the SEC team up? Can it be stopped? We're going to talk about Matt Rhule. What is going on? What are you doing, Matt Rhule? Heartland College Sports. Matt Rhule takes shot at Big 12 when comparing it to the Big 10. Joe Tillery. While Nebraska head coach Matt Rhule hasn't maintained a professional relationship with those affiliated with the Big 12 since leaving Baylor, he has continued to try to stay involved by trashing the league. At a recent press conference discussing Nebraska's recruiting approach, now this is a press conference out in the open in the month of April. Rhule took a massive shot at the Big 12, pushing the SEC and the Big Ten's alleged dominance over the sport. There are a lot of kids I would love to recruit. This is Matt Rhule talking. There are a lot of kids I would love to recruit that have committed to a Big 12 school or somewhere else like that. Come to camp, Rhule said. If you want to play in the Big 12 over the Big 10, I got it, but make no mistake, there is a big difference. While Rhule woke up and chose violence when discussing the Big 12, his time at Nebraska doesn't exactly spell success for elite recruits either. In his 2 years with the program, Rhule is just 12-13 overall and 6-12 in conference play. To go one step further, Rhule's time as a head coach anywhere hasn't been very special, as the veteran coach is just 3 games above 500, 59-56 across stops at Temple, Baylor, and Nebraska. He finished in the top 25 just once in his 9 seasons, with 2019 Baylor reaching the Sugar Bowl. Again, Rhule comments on the Big 12. The Big 12 is going to go nuts now. I know that, Rhule continued. I'm going to be on X and all that stuff, but it's the reality. The Big 10 and the SEC, especially moving forward, are going to be here higher than anyone else. Rhule will have an opportunity to back up his claims early in 2025, with the season opener coming against Scott Satterfield and the Cincinnati Bearcats on Thursday, August 28th. Again, you're taking shots at the Big 12. You didn't take a shot at the ACC or anybody else. You took a shot at the Big 12. You mentioned them a couple of times. There is nothing wrong in communicating to recruits that Big Ten is big time. Going to Nebraska Lincoln, this is where you should be. You shouldn't be even going to Purdue. You shouldn't be going to Michigan State. You shouldn't be going to Minnesota. You shouldn't be going to Wisconsin. Nebraska is it. Of course a coach is going to say that to their recruits. The Big Ten coaches are going to use this, Big Ten and SEC. They're not going to mention the SEC. They don't want you to go to the SEC. They're going to talk up the Big Ten. Big 12 coaches are going to talk up the Big 12, saying this is where you're going to get playing time. This is where you're going to really play football in front of the most craziest fans. Whatever. Every coach is going to prop up their school. 1, their university. 2, and maybe their conference. 3. But to have a press conference in the month of April while you're taking shots against the Big 12, saying if you want to, recruits, why are you doing this? Did you just lose a recruit to a Big 12 school? Are you frustrated that some recruits are going to Big 12 camps and not to Lincoln? Why are you saying this? When you're, Nebraska showed the pulse last year. I kind of like Nebraska for this year. But why are you saying this when you're 13-12? You haven't won more than 3 Big Ten games in a season. I don't know when's the last time Nebraska's won more than 3 Big Ten conference games in a season. Matt Rhule hasn't done it. Why are you trashing another conference in April? Especially when you lead off with Cincinnati. And by the way, as much as I like Nebraska this year, I like the fact that they got some new blood on the O-line. As much as I like Dylan Raiola, look at the line. Nebraska at Cincinnati, neutral location. Nebraska is only favored by 6.5 points. 6.5 points. It's not like Nebraska is a 2-touchdown favorite. So why are you doing this, Matt Rhule? Does it make any sense? It makes no... Why are you taking shots at the Big... What other Big Ten coach is taking shots at the ACC of the Big 12 in the month of April during spring camp? Tell me another tell me another head coach that's... Now, we know Lane Kiffin did it, right? We know Lane Kiffin took a shot at Indiana, took a shot at everybody except for SEC. That was during the playoffs. That was during the selection. That was afterwards. Lane Kiffin looked like a moron when he was doing all that. We were laughing at him. But at least it was, in the heat of the... I don't think he took it very well. Why is Matt Rhule doing this in April? He didn't mention the ACC. It's almost like, and again, I'm playing a doctor here, and I don't have a doctor's degree, but it's almost like he's been listening to those 2 or 3% of Nebraska Cornhusker fans who are the loudest on X, telling them Big 12 this, Big 12 that, Big 12 angst. I don't get it. I don't get it. Let me know. Explain to me why Matt Rhule said what he said in this press conference. It made no sense to me. David Hackett. Don't forget Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina voted no to add Stanford, Cal, and SMU. Don't want to travel with Olympic sports. Made that clear months ago. Plus SEC pro rata. I would agree. Now, I don't think the Big Ten's going to give up, though. They've been going after North Carolina forever. But I agree. I happen to think. I happen to think. Let me take a little time on this. And then we'll get back to other super chats. Thank you so much for your generosity, David Hackett. I happen to think, and I think there's some evidence, let me know if I'm wrong, I happen to think that Florida State wants the hell out. No offense to anybody. They went to the courts. They risked a lot. And you know what? Florida State, there was a cost to what Florida State did, by the way. There was a cost, not just monetarily, but with relationships with some inside the SEC and some inside with the Big Ten. And they're trying to make up for all that. Florida State is working hard on all that. And I told you the truth last year, that there was a cost to all this. But they won a massive victory. Florida State wants the hell out. Right? They want the hell out. Clemson wants out. Obviously. And you know what Clemson did at the time? I mean, you remember those reports coming out of South Carolina? Clemson beat writers, when they were saying stuff like, not only is Clemson think they're going to get out, but, you know, they have hold on a second here. Something is wrong with this thing. They have confidence. Why am I not getting... They have confidence that they're going to be able to get out, that they're going to be, you know, that they're not going to be in the ACC in the next couple of years. These big-time, big-brand schools of the ACC want out. Now, I know they got their ACC settlement deal, right? And that helps them. And I completely understand that absolutely helps Notre Dame maintain their obligations to the broadcast partners. But again, if Florida State and Clemson are able to get out, if North Carolina is able to get out, they're not going to stay in the ACC to the benefit of Notre Dame. They were against Notre Dame's ACC expansion plans. Notre Dame voted yes to sue Florida State. They voted yes to sue Clemson. North Carolina did not. So if North Carolina finds a home, if Florida State finds a home, if Clemson finds a home, are they going to be running to make a scheduling deal with Notre Dame? Maybe once in a while, but they're not going to be playing them twice every 3 years. They might be playing them once a decade, once every 15 years. That is I don't know where Notre Dame finds the value enough to keep it going like how they got it going right now. If the ACC implodes. Thank you so much, David Hackett. Thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate it so very much. Mr. Curtis, Mr. Wolverine, the Big Ten is very strategic in my humble opinion. They're expanding to bring in key schools with potential to maximize their markets and contributions to the league overall. Makes me wonder if 24 schools and pods is their ultimate goal. It might be. It might have been Kevin Warren's ultimate goal. I mean, he expressed that publicly. He said there is no limit. Could go to 20, could go to 24. He said that in public. Again, there is a lot of different variables out there that we don't even know exist in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It may never get to that point. Or if it does, and I talked about this last live show, if the Big Ten, for whatever reason, the motivation is to get to 24 because of politics was inside the conference, to make sure there's more balance, if they want to go to pods again because the burden of travel just gets too much, and they have to go to 24, they have to go to pods, then that is going to play in on what decisions the Big Ten does in the future when it comes to expansion candidates. Also, if they do this breakaway with the SEC, maybe going to 24 is something that they're going to want to do. We don't know. Thank you, Curtis, so much for your super chat, for your friendship. I do appreciate it. Mr. Wolverine, Ricky Tungate, Mr. Hoosier gives out 10 gifted memberships. Holy cow. Ryan, Secret Agent, P. Digits, Don in Kansas, Andy, Dave Carson, Jeff Watson, Sko Ducky, Adam Vulture, Same James. Please, all of you, all 10 of you, when you get the opportunity, please say thank you to Mr. Ricky Tungate, Mr. Hoosier. He's known by Mr. Hoosier in the PATC family. Please say thank you to him for his incredible generosity. All of you, every single one of you, are officially knighted. Cloak and Dagger. Go to our YouTube library. Watch all the episodes. They're all available to you. Mr. Tungate, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Okay. Now, let's get to let's see. You know what? I'm going to spend a little bit of time on ESPN, just real quick. But then I want to go to The Athletic in their article, all talking about the same thing here. The college football playoff buzz. Tell me what's the buzz. Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. The 5 topics on the table this week, we're not going to go through them all, but they're meeting in Las Colinas, Texas. This week for their annual spring meetings where they will continue to discuss the playoff future format. No major decisions are expected. Yada, 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 yada. This fall, the playoffs are still going to be a 12-team field determined by the selection committee. We all know about that. If there's anything adjusted this season for the 12-team playoffs this season, it would be how the teams are seeded. But that's a small part of the much larger changes the group is considering. Based upon reporting from conversations with sources involved in the process, here are some of the biggest questions facing the FBS commissioners and Notre Dame Pete Bavacqua this week. What are the formats? What formats are under consideration? The current 12-team model, another 14-team model that includes guaranteed spots for the Big Ten 4, SEC 4, ACC 2, Big 12 2, Group of 5 1, and at one at-large spot, Notre Dame, if it's ranked high enough, have gained the most publicity, but multiple sources have indicated that some commissioners would like the CFP to present other options this week. It's also possible other league leaders come to the table with ideas, as there is both private and public resistance to the idea of leagues having guaranteed spots for the postseason before the games are played. That's all I want to do with ESPN. We're going to go to The Athletic in a moment. We're going to go through The Athletic article in a moment. again, I want to make it clear. The Big Ten and the SEC, I believe they're playing a little bit of bad cop, good cop here, depending on the issue. On the issue of the automatic qualifiers, the Big Ten is playing bad cop. The SEC is playing good cop. The SEC, we don't necessarily need this. We don't even necessarily want this. And the Big Ten is saying, we want it. We want it, we want it, we want it. The SEC is playing bad cop on a few issues. So they're going back and forth. That is what I believe is happening. And I've said this. Again, if the Big Ten does not get 4 automatic qualifiers, if the SEC does not get 4 automatic qualifiers, we are going to take the L here at Peek Around the Corner. Because I said it was a fait accompli. I've heard it. We were the ones on September 9th of last year. We were the ones that broke the news that the Big Ten, it wasn't 3, it was 4. They wanted 4. If you go back to our live show September 9th. And during that live show, I said, I'm so positive about this because we got information from 2 separate independent group of people, sources, because we don't have a handler. We talk to a lot of people. And we got all this information, and we had stuff sent to us, and we knew that the media partners using the Big Ten as their proxy, they wanted these play-in games, all that stuff. So I'm going to take the L if that doesn't happen. Let's go to The Athletic. This morning, Big Ten and SEC control coming in 2026. The Big Ten and SEC made their real power play a year ago, after the two insinuated they could make their own postseason format breakaway and flex the leverage of producing the most participants in the 10-year CFP era. The rest of the sports leaders capitulated. The conferences in Notre Dame last year signed a memorandum of understanding, MOU, that will give the majority of CFP revenue and decision-making power in 2026 and beyond to those 2 leagues, the Big Ten and the SEC. Regardless of how many of their members take the CFP, they only must take consideration and input from everyone else. PATC money shot number 1 of the article this morning from The Athletic. And we've talked about this. If the Big Ten and the SEC agrees to the 2026 and beyond college football playoff format, the only requirements they need to push this through is 1, take consideration in from everybody else, take input from everybody else, and that is what they've been doing. So the question, the title of this show is, can the Big Ten and the SEC team up be stopped? I think there's only one way it can be stopped. I think there's only one play that the Big 12 and the ACC has, and I'm going to talk about it at the end of the article. That memorandum of understanding was quickly followed by the CFP and ESPN announcing a new contract from 26 to 31. According to sources briefed on the deal, about $1.3 billion annually. 1 year later, both the CFP governance and ESPN's long-form contracts have yet to be finished. And the governance deal must be done before ESPN contract can be completed, multiple people said. Nobody's going to back out of the CFP at this point, but finalizing everything beyond the bones of the agreement has slowed the process. With the money and power locked up, the two leagues have spent a year determining what the CFP will look like started in 2026. Petitti has been the driving force, the bad cop, behind the 4-4-2-2-1-1 CFP model that would, in 2026, provide 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12, 1 for the Group of 5, and at 1 large spot that would go to independent Notre Dame if the Fighting Irish hit a certain rankings threshold according to people involved in the process. A 16-team model would add 2 more at-large bids. Any model that guarantees multiple bids to specific conferences would free up the Big Ten and the SEC to potentially create play-in games for their final automatic spots outside the conference championship. Games that could be sold to media partners for additional revenue. Conferences with fewer guaranteed spots wouldn't have the same freedom, a point of contention that has been brought up in the room. No doubt. It has to be. I mean, how many play-in games can the Big 12 have and the ACC have if they have 2 automatic qualifiers? Right? The most they can have is 2. But then again, I don't know. There's no question about it. That whole thing has brought up contention in the room. Some involved believe Sankey is more concerned with refining the selection committee's process than securing auto bids. Even Paul Feinbaum has said his callers don't want the additional auto bids. I don't want them either. I've been saying that. I don't like this. I don't like it. I do not like it. But I think it's coming. I think it's coming. I don't think Greg believes the SEC needs all this stuff. A 5th person said about the automatic qualifiers. The management committee is expected to be presented with more format models and ideas this week, including potentially tweaking the selection process to remove some of the subjectivity. Instead of the conferences having predetermined automatic bids, leagues could assure some CFP access using performance-based criteria such as previous playoff results or regular season non-conference records, according to people involved in the discussions. I don't know about that. And another potential problem with auto bids, beyond their unpopularity, is whether they could create contractual issue for the conferences. The leagues agreed to a look-in after the 27th season to reassess revenue distribution based on results of the new format. Yormark pushed for the look-in clause, hoping his conference's performance would justify an increased share of revenue. But if a conference access is predetermined by automatic qualifiers, it could be argued that the system will undercut the conference's ability to earn a bigger slice of the pie. It would go against their past agreement. And this is the one way that I think Yormark and Phillips can throw up a roadblock on the 4 automatic qualifiers. They can argue that if you guys put in a 4 automatic qualifiers, that is going to go against what we agreed upon before, in which the Big 12 and the ACC, if they punch above their weight class, that they can receive more distribution money. But again, I think all this is going to lead to a 16-team playoffs. I'll get to that later. Do they just get to push this through, said the 3rd person. Nobody else is really for it. Questions remain whether a Big Ten and the SEC team up can be stopped. the title of our live show today. The leagues risk inviting antitrust complaints, political blowback, legal action from state attorney general, and possible pushback from ESPN. The worldwide leader will not have to pay more if the field expands to 14 teams, according to people familiar with the deal, but they may change if it expands to 16. All three questions of 2025 seeding, 2026 format, and governance, they are all tied together. Disagreement on one makes the others difficult to resolve. History says that the CFP leaders would take as long as possible in making such big decisions. And finally, in the article, the discussion's plotting pace can partly be attributed to the complexities of long-form contracts and competing corporate interests. But people involved still worry about further codifying a Big Ten SEC takeover, wondering if they have already forfeited their chance to do anything about it a year ago. We spend multiple meetings talking about the same issues, a sixth person said. The answer is the answer. The answer is the answer. Unfortunately, because I don't want these automatic qualifiers. Unfortunately, I think the answer is going to be the 4-4-2-2-1-1 out to as a 14-team playoff and then eventually a 16-team playoff. I think the Big Ten and the SEC are already planning on their play-in games. They're already planning on where they finish in the conference race will determine who gets to go to the playoffs. I think the Big Ten and the SEC has already determined that they're going to do this aggressive scheduling agreement, which means that the non-conference games are not, they're going to hurt a little bit, but not a whole lot because, again, it goes back to the conference races. Where you are placed. Do you qualify for the SEC play-in game? Do you qualify for one of the Big Ten play-in games? I think they've determined this. I think this is what they're talking about in the advisory group. They've met a couple times. Every time they meet for hours. I think this is what they're talking about. You just saw at the very end of the article. We've spent multiple meetings talking about the same issues. The answer is the answer. The answer is going to be what the Big Ten and the SEC say what it is. I'm being blunt. They're going to say what it is. And the reason why they haven't said what it is yet is because they needed to fulfill their obligations on consideration and on input. And that's what they've received. But those two conferences more than likely are going to come to an agreement, and that's what we're all going to have to live with. But I want to say this. This is college football's peek around the corner. This decision that the Big Ten and the SEC are making has become more complicated. They have the power, but it's become more complicated. It's become more complicated because of the massive victory that the Florida State Seminoles and the Clemson Tigers got in the court. It's become more complicated because the Big Ten and the SEC are not going to expand in 2033, 2034, 2035, 2032. they are expanding in this decade. They are expanding in the next 24 to 36 months. So that is all going to play a part of what the SEC and Big Ten do. Of course it is. I believe the greatest indication, and again, if I'm wrong, we'll take the L here at Peek Around the Corner. I think the greatest indication of further economic consolidation, and then it's all going to happen below the SEC and the Big Ten. It's going to happen among the ACC and the Big 12, and we're going to go through all this again. But one of the biggest indications that the Big Ten and the SEC are expecting more expansion is how they socialize the 16-team playoffs. This year it's going to be 12. It's very easy to fold into it's easier to fold into a 14 in 2026. But whatever comes out of these meetings this week, I believe here at College Football Peek Around the Corner, the 16-team playoff is going to be written in somewhere where somebody's going to be able to flip the switch. You know, they've got an easier ability to go to 12 to 14. I think it's all going to be built in that they're going to be able to go to 16, that the terms are all going to be written up already for a 16-team playoffs once they settle in on what it's going to look like in 26, even if it's a 14-team playoff. As we go further down this week, next week, and into May, the 16-team playoffs is going to get socialized among all the leaders. The reporters are going to be reporting on it. That's what I truly believe. Anyways, that is our monologue for today. Let's get to your phone calls. I do appreciate everybody coming on in. Let me make sure here. Hammer Henderson. No rest for the wicked. Hey, Greg. Thank you for the super chat. Mr. Henderson, Mr. Wolverine. Appreciate it. Appreciate your continued generosity, support of this channel. Thank you so very much. Expedition Greg gifted a membership. I might not have seen who was gifted a membership here. Expedition Greg. Don McCloy, you gifted a membership. Please, when you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Expedition Greg for his generosity. Both of you are knighted cloak and dagger officially. Go check out the library. Everything is open to members. Every episode is open to you all. Okay, let's get to your phone calls. Let's get to it. Talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Steven Angela. He's taking a visit to Syracuse. Joey Aguilar taking a visit to Tennessee and a couple other places. We got a lot of quarterback movement right now in the portal. A lot of quarterback movement. Let's see what we got in the chat room. Phone lines are wide open. Wide open. Miami not that much better off an option than USF. Don is thanking Expedition Greg. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Expedition Greg. Appreciate it. Tough loss for the Wild last night. Well, Tony, we are the state of hockey, right? We are the state of hockey. We don't win nothing. We don't win no Stanley Cups. We haven't won a national title in 20 years. But we're the state of hockey. This studio sits in the middle of Loserville City, and I am your mayor. Once again, the Wild go down in Game 1. Florida, Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. I got a good friend who's a Tampa Bay Lightning fan. He kills me. He absolutely kills me.
Call from
Rick.
Rick is on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I do appreciate it so very much.
Well, thank you. I thought the others surrendered their rights regarding the future playoffs.
Well, they did. They do have votes. It's just that the SEC and the Big Ten combined, if they agree, then they overcome the others' votes. So it's not that they don't have any power, but they need a split between the Big Ten and the SEC for it to make any difference. So that's where we're sitting. Yeah.
Well, what's that got to do with congressional interference?
I don't know what you mean by that. Now, some people might think that Congress might step in if the Big Ten and the SEC pull their full weight. I don't know what the possibilities of that is. I'm just reporting what the article said.
Okay, I thought you were implying that your mark and the maybe I thought you were agreeing with the article that your mark and
well, what
the ACC.
I get what you're saying. I'm sorry, Rick. I'm a little slow. I think there may be a little. I may be wrong, but there may be a little bit of a window of opportunity where, that look-in clause of 2028, where they might be able to change the distribution model a little bit, the revenue that comes from the playoffs, if the Big 12 and the S8, either the Big 12 or the ACC or the G5, if one of those three entities punches above their weight class and they get more, they win a national title, and maybe they can earn more money, and maybe that would affect somehow this plan of the Big Ten and the SEC to have 4 automatic qualifiers each. Because, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe there's a way that they can. Again, look, I think it's all going to happen. I think it's all going to happen. So I think the 4 automatic qualifiers are going to happen. Eventually, it's going to go to 16. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's the only way to slow down, probably not stop, this team up that they've got, the Big Ten and the SEC, because they got the power. They got the power.
And you've got the breakup occurring and the new setups for the SEC and the Big Ten happening probably in 27.
I'm thinking 26, 27, 28. I don't think it happens this year. But I think it's happening. I think it's happening because Rick, beyond the economics, beyond the numbers, beyond the ledgers, beyond all this other stuff, be it the right decision, be it the wrong decision, Big Ten might make a wrong decision. They might make a right decision. Yes. Beyond all of that, I think it's going to happen. I think there's going to be an ACC implosion. I don't know how big it is. I predicted what I think is going to happen, but obviously I would not know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I think beyond everything else, beyond the logic, is the inertia. Okay?
Right.
Like, there's so much going on. And everyone's going to find out about it. That just that inertia, the fear, the prisoner dilemma, the Birmingham people looking at the Rosemont, Illinois people, the Rosemont, Illinois people looking at the Birmingham people, Fox looking at ESPN looking at Fox, and everyone else. It's just so instability. It's so the inertia of this economic consolidation. It still hasn't stopped. I think the inertia makes it all happen.
And if it were going to happen in 26 or 27,
I think so.
They'd probably announce it this year. Because you don't do that without announcing 18 months in advance.
Are you talking about SEC Big Ten expansion?
Together with ACC implosion.
Well, if a school joins July 1st, if Florida State joins the Big Ten in 2026, in July 1st, 2026, they have to file the notice of withdrawal on or before August 15th of this year. So for there to be expansion in 26, you're correct. It's got to happen in the summer of this year. If it's going to happen in 27, it's got to happen before August 15th of 26.
Right, but they could announce today for 27. I mean, remember when Texas and Oklahoma had the 3 years before they were going announcement? Then it started to get and they bought out the last year?
Yeah, but if they could have moved earlier, they would have. And they did move earlier.
Correct.
But they did not move right away. That had to be negotiated. There is no negotiations needed on this one. Right now, for the summer, it's 165 and you're out. Next summer, it's 147 and you're out. There is no, So.
I guess that's my point. You could announce for 27 and at 136.
Yeah, but I think if you announce, if you announce, I don't know if it's the ACC, I don't know what conference it was, but if you announce you're going, you're gone as early as that bylaw indicates. So even an announcement, like to file an official withdrawal from the ACC, you have to file that withdrawal to the commissioner and to all the other presidents. When you do that, it's official. But, and you know what, I'm not going to go through it today, but I'm going to go through this. I believe, and I think it's the ACC. I'm pretty sure it is. Or it might have been the old Big 12. God, I can't remember. Somebody had a clause in their bylaws, in their withdrawal section. Everybody has a withdrawal section in their bylaws. And in there it stated, if you make an announcement that you're going, it's considered, you got to make your payments, you got to get out. I'm going to find that somewhere. So I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. It may be possible. Where you say, I'm out today, you pay up. Hold on a second here. Hold on.
I say that because they haven't. This was a court settlement that allows for decreasing, scaled down, decreasing exit. So that in and of itself tells you they've made the announcement. Whatever year we choose to leave, it's going to be at that rate. So there are no surprises to anyone in the conference. There's no negotiation. It's already been settled.
Mm-hmm.
This is the rate for 26. This is the rate for 27. This is the cost for going in 28. The fact that we announce it today is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, that might be doable. I mean, I got really nothing that comes to mind that I can't say it's not doable. Maybe it is, and maybe that's what happens. I don't know. I mean, but do you really like if do you really want to be a school that has announced that you're leaving and then stick around, not of course just the year that you're going to go into, but the next year, you know, the relationships get a little frayed. I mean, that's kind of difficult.
Can help in recruiting.
It could. Yep.
And then they haven't decided how the others get to split the money.
They may have decided. I don't know what it is. And everybody that I talk to doesn't know what it is. And I think that's everything. So that's why while everybody at Peek Around the Corner is absolutely free to let me know what you think is going to happen next, I'm going to be a little bit guarded because, boy, that could the way they distribute that exit fee money is going to, and you got to think, Rick, you got to think that when Phillips and of course ESPN had a hand in it, but when they figured out this settlement, you got to think that Phillips and the ACC corporate office, their lawyers, had to game this out, and they had to make it so, okay, we're gonna lose this, we're gonna possibly lose this institution, that institution, this institution, that institution. We're going to approximate how much money is going to come to us in exit fees. They might leave a year from now too. And then how does that money get distributed so we can make sure we give ourselves the best chance to buy ourselves time with the Louisville, with the Virginia Tech, with the North Carolina State, with, you know, whatever. I mean, you would think they have gamed this out and made it much more difficult for the Big 12 to poach the ACC after this initial implosion concludes. I would think so, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, hasn't this all been signed? And
they have. It probably has, but I don't have the information. And nobody that I've talked to has the information. So I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
I wish I did, but I don't know. If somebody knows, let me know. You know, it's like I don't have that information. And I think it's so unbelievable important, but I have not been able to get it.
I thought the Florida State money perch was on us.
He doesn't care about that part. Right? He don't care about how the Seminole money is going to be distributed. I'll keep poking and prodding, but you haven't heard any reports. Nobody has reported it. No one's touching it. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for taking the call.
Appreciate it. Great call, Rick. If you are new to our channel, or if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure your notifications are turned on. We could come on live at any time.
Edward the Auburn Tiger.
Edward the Auburn Tiger, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Good show, and I absolutely love the caller before. Boy, did he ask you the money question.
Yeah, and and Rick always has great calls, and everybody has great calls. And unfortunately, a lot of times, not only do I not have the answer to your questions, but oftentimes I haven't even thought about the questions you guys ask. Now that one I have because I've done a lot of work on it, but I can't get the answer. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, what do we know, Greg? We know this. We know that ESPN had their partner, the ACC, adjust their financial agreement to allow these things to happen. And I firmly do not believe that the ACC, being a long-standing partner with ESPN, that ESPN would allow them to completely go belly up.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that's going to happen either. I agree.
Yeah, there's a plan. They just haven't released it. And I actually believe that they're going to be looking pretty good when all this is done, considering the powerhouse teams that's going to leave. I believe in all this, Greg, the train has left the station. It's too far going down the tracks now for anything to turn or to not go through on what you've been saying, really.
I'm not that confident.
Yeah. Well, just look at it. To me, the biggest deal, and I think we'll look back, the biggest deal of the whole shebang in this last move here was ESPN bringing ACC to the table and getting them to adjust their contract. That had to set a lot of things in motion. Absolutely did.
Yeah.
I mean, and everything you're discussing, and I don't know if you were embargoed and all that good stuff, but you keep stretching it. And it just seems like the train has left the station. Big Ten, Fox, NBC, CBS. I mean, they're planning. ESPN, SEC, they're planning. You just said a couple episodes ago, the whole world is meeting. I mean, there's whining and dining, conversations going on. Out in the open somewhat, there's some embargoes probably on it, but it's just freelance. It's just a different season that we've never seen in negotiations of college football, whether it's the playoffs, whether it's expansion. It's just a different era, a different season, a different vibe. And like you said, that inertia.
Yeah.
And then it's bringing everything forward. Like you said, not 2030s, but the 2020s. I mean, there's a gold rush. And you said this a couple years ago. You said the 2026 is going to be the gold rush. You said that. And I'm not saying that it's going to quite hit that target, but man, it won't be far from that. It will not be far from that. But I believe that the thing that, like you said, that really opened this up is when ESPN brought ACC to the table and negotiated to let all these teams. And you better believe that ESPN did this with a full plan of where they want those teams to go, who they're going to replace these teams with, how it's going to be done. It is a controlled demolition. It is a controlled college football playoff of negotiations. I mean, it's met with hostility. It's met with rebuffing, but it's going to get through because there's too much money at stake. There's too much creativity on the line. And there's just too much freedom right now. I mean, there's nothing is embargoing any of this from happening. Greg, I'm agreeing with the last caller. Mm-hmm. I'm in total agreement with you. I've been watching you, listening to you for 2 years. You're 95, 96, 97% right. You have took L's when you needed to take L's. and you just got a gut feeling based on the information you've been receiving, and it's just making sense. It's making PATC sense. I'll put it to it that way, because the way you put it out, the way expenses are going, it's just going differently. It's just the normal way, and I'm excited about it, and I actually believe it will be sooner than later. It could be a 2026, could be a 2027. But and one more thing, and I'm gonna get off the phone.
You bet.
You said all of these things are connected, and they are. And if they are connected, you don't get one without the other. If the House situation passes, which it looks like it is, that domino falls, and they get the 4-4-2-2. I believe it's going to be 16 teams instead of 14 teams. It's going to be a complete domino effect. Boom, 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 boom. And they're going to hit the iron while it's hot. I honestly believe that. And that's why I honestly believe that the train has left the station. There's no going back now. There's no going back now.
All righty, man. Beautiful call, Edward the Auburn Tiger, saying it like it is, or the way he believes. He's even more confident than I am. But Edward the Auburn Tiger, I appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. You have a wonderful day, sir. Thank you.
You too. Yeah, NBC wants better product. And again, going back to NBC, right? There's all this concern that NBC, a little bit of concern on the Big Ten product. It looks like the Big Ten is going to make some adjustments. Ohio State might, they're not going to have so many big noon games on Fox. They might be willing to play at night if, a little bit more. NBC has all this concern, right? What do you think is going to happen if Florida State and Clemson are gone? They're no longer in the ACC. What if North Carolina leaves? And what if there's a threat that Miami is going to leave? What is NBC going to think about Notre Dame's football schedule? What can they do about it? That's the question that I can't get an answer to. What could they possibly do to maintain that level of programming between Notre Dame and NBC? It's very difficult to be a standalone product. Very difficult. Notre Dame has been able to get it done for decades. But with this economic consolidation going on, it's going to get even more difficult.
Call from
Larry Andrick.
Larry Andrick, Mr. Mountaineer, the floor is yours. Boy, it's nice to hear your voice. Thanks for calling, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Greg?
I'm doing
Happy
great,
Easter,
sir.
belated. You and your general and your mom.
I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, this is crazy, I know, but I've been thinking about a lot of things lately on football.
Yes, sir.
And basketball. And I really honestly believe we're going to end up with 3 leagues. You're going to have the Big 12, who's going to end up getting at least 4 teams and maybe 6 teams out of the ACC. You're going to end up with Notre Dame and Miami, I think, going to the Big 12. I think you're going to end up with North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, and Clemson going to the SEC. And with that, I'm looking at, you got 3 leagues. I don't think the ACC can even survive after that, and with at least a power conference. I am looking for 3 different leagues, just 3 complete Division I superpowers. You're going to have 22, 24 teams in each one of these conferences. And I think within a few years, with the teams that the Big 12 will bring in and the money they're spending, whether they get, especially if they get this money
infusion from private capital, I believe that you'll have 3 superpower leagues. I think Texas Tech, for one, this year is already going to be a powerful team with the money they've spent in football. I think BYU is going to be a power in basketball with the money they've spent. I think West Virginia is going to be in the next 2 or 3 years up there with them because they're spending money like crazy. And I believe that other schools in the Big 12 will spend that kind of money too, and especially with a cash infusion. At that point, I think you're going to have 3 major conferences. It's going to be the Big 12, the ACC, or the SEC, and the Big 10. And I think they will control football from probably, I'm guessing, 27, 28 on forward. I believe that there's only going to be a couple schools left in the ACC, and if they backfill, they're going to be going down to a Division II. With the number of schools in each one of these conferences, I can see the 3 conferences getting 4 automatic qualifiers each into the playoffs, and that would level the playing field for everybody and make this really a super conference without actually going to a super conference. You'll have the exact same amount of people that you really want in 3 different high-powered leagues. And I do think the Big 12 is possible with some help to get there. It's going to be a long uphill battle because you got Ohio State. But if you think about it, you got 4 teams in the Big 10 that right now control everything. And with Notre Dame and Miami, you're adding a couple more. In the SEC, you'll have Florida. Really, Florida is low on the count, and I think that the 4 they're bringing in are not going to raise their meter that much. You're going to have Alabama, you're going to have Georgia, Texas, and everybody else in the SEC. And I think in the Big 12, you'll have 3 or 4 schools raise their game to the point where they start making playoff runs. And at that point, I think you'll have 3 conferences and nobody else. Now, you can tell me how stupid I am or how backward I have figured this out because it's really a long shot. But I actually believe that that's what everybody's working for. What do you think?
I think maybe that's what your mark is working for. I think maybe Phillips is working against it. I don't think it's backwards. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're a college football sicko like I am, but I think
I've always been.
But I do think you're a lot smarter than I am, just like everybody else in the PATC family. Again, that's speculation. I think a lot of people agree with you, Larry, especially in Big 12 country. I can't get there. There's just so many unknown. I go back to, how does ACC distribute those exit fees? When do they do it? All that is unknown. I wish I had that information because that could really decide how vulnerable is the ACC to Big 12 poaching. I don't know the answer to that. So, but well, I get what you said. I get what you said.
Well, can you imagine some of these ACC schools actually want to stay in the ACC with?
Hello, I lost you, Larry.
Leaving.
Huh?
I just can't understand it. The rest of the schools would try to build that conference to where it would be competitive. Where if they join the Big 12. You already got a whole list of schools that are pretty good. They're not actually up to the extent of the Big Ten's few schools or the SEC's few schools.
Yeah.
But you do have a real core of schools.
Yeah.
And the only big school that I'm worried about, I wish we could get into the fold, is Utah. Utah seems to be an side of an outsider that's causing trouble, and I think they're trying to kick above their level right now. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to come in and just dominate the Big 12. Well, they came in and found out how hard it is to play in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And the teams that we've been playing outside the Big 12, if you look across the boards, we're not getting killed by anybody. We play a pretty good schedule, and we play a pretty good Big 12 schedule. Yeah. We play teams that we they're supposed to be better than us in all categories, and we win our share of games.
Yeah.
So I look like if this happens and everybody gets on board, this could be a hell of a league. It could be just almost as powerful in the long run when you divide it, where you have the teams, where you have a 4-4-4 conference. And I think that would help everybody. You would have more money coming in for every league eventually. You'd be down to 3, so you don't have to fight everybody. I know it's a long shot, but I just thought I'd put my 2 cents worth in.
Your 2 cents, Larry, is way more valuable than my $2. How about them apples?
I don't believe that for a minute, but right. I wish it was. Hey, Greg, thank you for everything. I really appreciate watching your show every day. Most of the time I can't catch you live, but when I do, I enjoy it. And when I don't, I enjoy it. But I do watch it every day, and thank you for being you.
I love when you call, Larry. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Great call by Mr. Mountaineer, Larry Andrick. By the way, what is the line on the Pittsburgh September 13th game? What is the line right now? What are we sitting at there? Panthers and the Mountaineers. I'm just going to throw it out there. If the Mountaineers, if they're the underdogs, and then I don't know if they'll be they're at home, right? West Virginia's at home. If going into that week, if they're the underdogs against Pittsburgh, somebody donate money to PATC. I was saying Country Roads. I've done that song a couple of times. If West Virginia defeats Pittsburgh, and if they're the underdogs, if someone donates just a little bit of money, I'll sing that song again. But I don't know. I think the line's probably going to be pretty close, right? Okay, I got a question from Curtis here, and I'm gonna answer this in the way that maybe I should have answered this a long time ago. Curtis, great question. Greg, some are arguing that Notre Dame can be the boss in the rebuilt ACC rather than playing the Blue Bloods. I'm going to answer it this way. Back in March 31st, 2022, when we broke the news that USC was talking to the Big Ten, when I got the call from BTM and his associates, if you go back and read those tweets, and we did an episode 22, if you weren't part of the family, go all the way back in the library, episode 22, and I go through the whole story. If you read the first 3 or 4 or 5 posts, basically, I'm laying out the reasons why USC called the Big Ten. It's not because they wanted to leave their Pac-12 partners. USC needed to make sure that they were above the stratification line, the revenue stratification line, because they perceived the future, and we talked about it during 2022, the whole spring and summer, how players were going to get paid more, they were going to get direct payments. Everything that you are seeing now, USC perceived it back in 2022. USC perceived that they needed to get a certain level to be able to compete at the highest level of college football and other sports. And they were not going to be able to maintain that level in the Pac-12. They were already falling behind. That is why they called the Big Ten. Now, when I posted this and kept posting it, and I posted my videos, we didn't have a YouTube channel at the time. We should have. We would have really rocked the boats if we had one, but we rocked the boats enough. Anyways, so what people said in return was, like, way over 90% of the people said on message boards, on X, Twitter at that time, is USC is not going to join a conference being that far away. Big Ten is not going to invite a school that's not contiguous. I mean, one reason after the other. USC is not going to leave their other members. One reason after another why this wasn't going to happen. Now, if you look at it now, people say, sure, but back then, well over 90% of the people said I was nuts. But I kept going back to the same point because we had the information. I kept going back to the same point. How does USC maintain their ability to compete at the highest level with exposure and revenue if they stayed in the Pac-12? Because if they would have stayed in the Pac-12, they would not have it would be a bigger struggle to get to this rev share, everything else that goes along with it. It was USC's main goal was to make sure they get above the stratification line. Revenues, and I kept saying it over and over, and I kept asking people, how does USC compete against Michigan, Alabama, went through all the schools. I said, how does USC, how are they able to compete against Texas and Oklahoma when they are $35 million behind in conference media money, conference payouts to these other giants year after year? They can do it 1 or 2 years. But over the decade, that's a $300 million gap. Over 20 years, it's going to be well over $700, $800 million gap. USC did not want to be put in that position. So I kept asking the same, nobody had an answer. Everyone said it ain't going to happen. Big Ten has never done this. They've never expanded with a school that wasn't contiguous with the other current schools. They've never done this. But I kept hearing USC wants in, and the Big Ten money, the big power people, they all wanted this to happen. So going back to Curtis's question, Greg, some are arguing that Notre Dame can be the boss in a rebuilt ACC. Yeah, they can be the boss of an ACC 2.0. They can be a boss of it. But if they're the boss of it, they're not going to be able to compete at the highest level in college football or in other sports. The margin of error will go like this. The exposure, the revenue all drops if Notre Dame becomes the boss of the ACC. Now they're still going to play football. They're still going to play basketball. They're going to still all do all these other things. But Notre Dame is in it to win it just as much as USC is. They want the most exposure and revenue for the front porch of the university. Notre Dame has been able to keep up. They've been able to keep up in large part, first of all, their great brand, the scheduling deal with the ACC. But if that goes away, how does Notre Dame keep up? They're not keeping up being the boss of ACC 2.0. They're not keeping up with that. They're going to play some really good institutions. No question about it. Boston College, whatever is left, really good institutions. Maybe even Duke is there. But Notre Dame fans, they're going to lose money. They're going to lose exposure. And let me ask you this next question. When is the last time Notre Dame has ever taken a step back? They've never taken a step back. They have said no to the Big Ten because they're able to maintain their exposure, their revenue, their ability to compete at the highest level. But when Florida State and Clemson leave, when North Carolina leave, my question is, like my question was about USC 3 years ago that no one could answer. How does Notre Dame, how are they able to compete at the highest level when they're not going to be able to demand the top dollar? Notre Dame, yes, they're different. They got a great brand. They've had football independence. But Texas is huge. The Texas Athletic Department is gigantic. They bring all this money in. Oklahoma's big. Not as big as Texas. Texas is huge. But what did Texas do? They dropped that Longhorn Network. That Longhorn Network was getting demolished by the SEC network. I'm sorry, but it was. It wasn't giving the Olympics teams, it wasn't giving the football team exposure. It was crap. It did not have enough live content. It was crap. It was hurting Texas athletic department. They got rid of it. Even Texas needed to jump to the SEC. Even Texas. USC. You know how many times people said Texas was never going to go to the SEC because Texas academia, they would never allow it. You remember all that? If Texas was ever going to go to the SEC, it would have already been done. But things change. Economic consolidation came into the college football space. It affected Texas and Oklahoma. They knew what was going to happen. All these things were percolating. USC knew it. UCLA was desperate and they got in. Washington and Oregon came in at half freight. North Carolina is not the same. North Carolina is not the same North Carolina that it was 10 years ago. They're not doing everything they can to stay in the ACC. They're doing everything they can to get out. Florida State and Clemson just went to the court. They risked a lot. And they won. So the idea that Notre Dame is not affected by anything, that Notre Dame is somehow different, that they don't have to maintain the stratification, that somehow nothing is ever going to change. I don't buy that at all, because we're going through huge changes right now. So the same questions that I asked about USC, which I never got an answer to, but we did finally get the answer, right? USC joined the Big Ten. It's the same question I have now. How does Notre Dame keep their ability to compete at the highest level in football and in other sports in an ACC 2.0? For Notre Dame. Because they're not going to be able to play Clemson every year. They're not going to be able to play Florida State every year. They're not going to be able to play Miami every year. They're not going to be able to play North Carolina in Olympic sports every year. How does Notre Dame maintain themselves above the stratification line? If there is an ACC implosion. And all the evidence says it's going to happen. Like, every drop of evidence is going to happen. Like, they're all trying to get out. If there is a message that you are going to receive in May or June or July, and I think it's probably going to be starting in May, the message is they're all trying to get out. The Congo line, remember that in the Brett McMurphy article? If somehow there's a victory in the courts, there could be a Congo line out of the ACC. And if there's a Congo line, what do you think? Notre Dame ain't going to be part of the Congo line? I think they are. I think they have to. That's my take on it. It's a very strongly held opinion based upon everything I've heard. And we all could, and everybody that I talked to could be dead wrong. Of course. And I could be dead wrong. And it ain't no one person that I'm talking to. My God. And a lot of people. So the questions I asked about USC is the questions I asked about Notre Dame. Haven't gotten an answer on Notre Dame, and I don't blame anybody, because I don't think there is an answer on how they maintain above the revenue stratification line if the ACC implodes. Because they're not going to have the same football schedule. They're not. You think Clemson and Florida State and Miami are going to be playing Notre Dame as much now? I mean, USC doesn't even want to play Notre Dame every year. USC, who's had a 100-year history. USC, have you looked at USC's football schedule? Take a look at it. So their last football scheduled game with Notre Dame is 27. They might play Notre Dame at 28, but they're not going to play Notre Dame at 28, 29, 30, 31, especially if they have to have a crossover game with with an SEC opponent. So how does Notre Dame, yeah, they can be the boss. They can be the absolute boss. But listen to Bavakwa. Listen to Jack Swarbrick. They don't want to be a boss of an ACC conference or any other conference that does not give them the ability to compete at the highest level. They have said it in public. We showed an article. Bavakwa said it in June of 2024. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to Notre Dame themselves. That's how I'm going to answer that. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate the generosity once again. Thank you so very much. I know that was a long answer. It's probably an answer that I should have given a long time ago. in that way. Ryan Willie, no way Notre Dame goes to the Big 12. I would agree. Maybe I'm wrong, but I agree. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I think there's very little chance of that happening. Not because the Big 12 markets don't have Notre Dame alumni in them and all that stuff. Thank you, Ryan Willie. And I don't think Notre Dame stays above the stratification line that they want to be at. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. Appreciate it so much. Ryan Brooks, LSU Taga. Greg, there is about to be a baby tiger born in Florida. And your youngest member of the PATC family, you shouldn't have left us alone in the Holy Smokes Theater. There's about to be a baby tiger born in Florida. Your youngest member of the... I don't understand that. Ryan Brooks, you're going to have to explain to me. I'm a little slow. No question about it. I am a little slow. Thank you for your super chat. I don't understand it. Did I leave? LSU is not in the theater as of right now. I don't get it. Let me know what I'm missing. But I do appreciate it. I'm about to have a... Oh, you're about to have a son. Okay. Congratulations, Ryan Brooks. Congratulations. Unbelievable. Job well done, Mrs. Brooks, Ryan Brooks. I'm sorry, Ryan. I've often said I am a moron here at PATC. I am a moron here. Okay. Do you think Notre Dame will win a Big Ten championship in football? Sure. If they join the conference, someday they will. Someday they will. Absolutely. Opie, I think the first train smoking out of ACC will be full. Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on a Monday afternoon going into the early evening. I want to thank the incredible generosity of Opie D. Down, Mr. Seminole, the Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, Xmas Talks, Rutgers, David Hackett, thank you so much. Mr. Wolverine Curtis, Mr. Seminole Daniel Gorby, Mr. Hoosier Ricky Tungate, Mr. Wolverine Helmer Hennison, Mr. Buckeye Expedition Greg, Mr. Wolverine Curtis, Evil Badger Willie again, and the LSU Taga Ryan Brooks. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Ryan. And I feel bad that I kind of blew all that. Sorry, Ryan. I'm an idiot. I am a moron, no question about it. I want to thank everybody who donated to help us keep the lights on. I want to thank you all for the comments in the comments section and the wonderful phone calls. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to the channel and have your notifications turned on to College Football's Peek Around the Corner, because we can come on live at any time. Anytime we can come on live to cover the breaking news or to make the breaking news ourselves. So please subscribe and have your notifications turned on. And before you leave, smash the like button if you've liked our content today. Hit the thumbs down button if you did not. Either way, it helps us with YouTube. If you hit the thumbs down button, let me know in the comments section how we can better provide you, the college football sicko, with better information, better entertainment, whatever you need to have happen. Let me know in the comments section. Buckle up, brace for impact. They're meeting in Texas this week. You got this settlement. You've got private capital going all over the place. You've got cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.